Testing. There we go.
Good afternoon, and welcome to South Carolina State University for the 54th Annual Orangeburg Massacre Commemoration Ceremony. I am Ursula O. Robinson, Professor of Drama here at South Carolina State University. Thank you so much for joining us as family to commemorate this moment in time. Give yourself a round of applause. Thank you so much for our accompanist. Our theme, Unveiling and Dedication for the Orangeburg Massacre, is most appropriate for why we gather here today, some 54 years later, when students from then South Carolina State and Claflin colleges, along with others from the Orangeburg community, united to combat racial discrimination and its ills, thinking not just of themselves, but having a vision in which equality would be extended for all. Now, we witness America coming together, and even our brothers and sisters from around the world fighting for democracy, for human rights, for equity in education, for equal pay, for voting rights, for the right to have access to fair and equitable housing, as well as for clean air to breathe and water to drink. Time and time again throughout history, we've seen that together we can make a significant impact in bettering humanity. And it is our hope that those attending today's program will be empowered to stand shoulder to shoulder to fight against injustice. Now, let us continue with our program. Please join me in welcoming Miss South Carolina State University, Richland Williams, a senior speech pathology major from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and Mr. South Carolina State University, Jamie Gilmore, a senior mass communications major from Columbia, South Carolina. Mr. and Miss South Carolina State will extend the official welcome from the university for this morning's ceremony. They will be followed by an invocation from the Reverend Constance Barnes and the occasion from Giovanni Ayers. Reverend Barnes is a 1991 graduate of South Carolina State University and is the minister of New Grace United Methodist Church in Walterboro, South Carolina. She also serves as the chaplain for South Carolina State University National Alumni Association. Will Mr. and Miss SESU please come forward?
February 8th, 1968 is a day that is forever etched in the memories of the survivors, the families of those who were fatally injured that evening, and for those in the Orangeburg community whose lives were touched. Certainly for the SC State family, the day marked a significant moment in our history. It is indeed a time which we will never forget. Today is a reunion of sorts for us to gather in the auditorium to reflect February 8th, 1968, the day of the Orangeburg Massacre.
While we assemble every year on this date to remember what is most important, and we together must honor the sacrifices of the men and women, both young and old, and even children. As the official hostess of South Carolina State University, I welcome you to walk these sacred grounds of this historic campus. Following today's service, please make sure to go and visit the memoriam Consider the sacrifices that were made that evening and reflect on the speaker's experiences as a civil rights activist and take heed to his call to action. Then resolve within yourself to renew your commitment or begin today as a soldier for justice. We will now have Reverend Barnes.
Good morning. I am honored for the privilege to participate. Let us pray. Creator God, Mother and Father of us all, as we gather on sacred ground to commemorate the historic Orangeburg Massacre that occurred 54 years ago today, February 8th, 1968. Oh God, we invoke your divine presence on this gathering and petition you to lead, guide, and direct us to continue the journey forward. Oh God of remembrance and reconciliation, we remember those college-age students whose bold and fearless actions called them to the streets in protest. We remember those who prayed, marched, and who sacrificed their lives for the advancement of freedom and equality in the city of Orangeburg. And as they and others joined them, many were injured and 3 were fatally killed. Today, we call out their names: Henry Smith, Samuel Hammond, Delano Middleton. Oh God, may we never forget them. The sacrifice of their young lives, the pain and suffering of their families. The South Carolina State Bulldog and Claflin Panthers family, the Orangeburg community, the entire state of South Carolina, and the impact their courage, determination, and sacrifice has made in our world. O God of love and liberation, for the accomplishments, freedom, and privileges we now experience, the renewed commitment to invest in the lives of African American students, the blessings of life, health, strength, and so much more, we give you thanks, O God. Dear God of majesty and mercy, there are times we are angry due to the loss of young life. Therefore, we pray that you will sustain us to relinquish bitterness and embrace forgiveness, denounce separation and invite inclusion, release blame and demonstrate your compassion. Oh God, dry our tear-stained eyes and give us clear vision as we progress in the continuous struggle for equity and equality. Holy God of power and of peace, we seek your overarching and unwavering divine protection upon the relentless work of justice and equality. Remind us of our individual and communal responsibilities in the fight for a better world and all humankind. May we be empowered this morning with words of hope that will touch our hearts, change our lives, and move our feet to action. Now, God of grace and God of glory, on thy people pour thy power. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the facing of this hour, for the facing of this hour. In your perfect and powerful holy name, I pray. Amen. Excuse me, I wasn't reading the script. Now, please help me welcome our platform, Madam Giovanni Ayers, President of South Carolina State University's Student Government Association, and Mr. Sidney Evering, a native of Orangeburg and graduate of Orangeburg Wilkinson High School in 1992. He earned his law degree from the University of South Carolina in 2002 and practiced in the areas of local government, economic development, and public finance. Mr. Evering previously served on the Board of Trustees for South Carolina State University. He's Orangeburg's newly elected city administrator. Ms. Ayers is a senior political science major from Columbia, South Carolina, and will be one of South Carolina's future leaders. She will come now and give us the occasion. Ms. Giovanni.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. On February 8th, 1968, a tragic event took place here on the campus of SC State and in the city of Orangeburg that led to the loss of lives of Samuel Hammond Jr., Delano Middleton, and Henry Smith, and resulted in the wounding of at least 28 others. As I look into the audience and I see my peers, I cannot help but think that we are the same age or near the ages of the students who attended South Carolina State and Claflin universities at that time. A half of a century seemed like such a long time ago, but it's not. While much has changed in the United States, we must not forget the legacy of those whose sacrifices have made for the progress that you and I enjoy today. We must continue to tell the stories and increase awareness of violence against African Americans, Latino Americans, Jewish Americans, and Asian Americans committed by men and women who abuse their power. Senseless killings of thousands by the hands of professional bullies, and movements with young activists taken to social media using hashtags like Me Too, Dreamers, Hands Up, Don't Shoot, I Can't Breathe, and Black Lives Matter. It proves that even today, in 2022, the struggle continues. As the world gets smaller, the struggle to end social injustice does not exist just on American soil. Our global brothers and sisters need courageous people all over the world to fight for their freedoms. So today, we welcome you not merely to honor the men and women of the Orangeburg Massacre, but to celebrate the values of equality, tolerance, and interracial sisterhood and brotherhood that the students so compellingly expressed on that night. We welcome each of you to reflect on the timeless values that were conveyed on that evening. The values of courage, truth, justice, compassion, dignity, humility, and service that so radiantly mirrored the dreams of the civil rights activists. As the loyal sons and daughters of SC State University, we are pleased to welcome you to this solemn occasion.
Good morning. On behalf of Mayor Michael Butler, the Orangeburg City Council, and the City of Orangeburg, I bring you greetings. It is indeed my pleasure to be with you. I think it goes without saying that State University and the City of Orangeburg share a common destiny, a common history, and we have inextricable bounds that quite frankly can never be broken. So it is certainly our pleasure to share in this moment, this commemoration of an event that was, although it was tragic, it will never be forgotten. We have a shared pain, but we also want to come together and share in the healing and a brighter future for tomorrow. So please know that all South Carolina State Bulldogs, far and wide, will always have a place in the city of Orangeburg to call home. We thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams and Mr. Gilmore, Reverend Barnes, and Madam SGA President, Ms. Ayers, and Mr. Evering. Thank you so much for those. Wait a minute, let me ask you a question. Do you feel welcomed? Come on. There are so many people out in this audience today who have firsthand knowledge of this occasion. So we are so glad that you survived, that you made it here, so that you can tell the story and you can push forward equality and the fight that we all fight for, making sure that we get justice. I would like to bring forward for you today Mr. Delano Whitfield, and he's going to be performing a spoken word piece called Deja Vu. Mr. Whitfield is a junior communications major here at South Carolina State University. Give him a warm Bulldog welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm honored and elated to be here. I want to thank everybody, Ms. Robinson, President Conyers, and Mr. Davion Petty for inviting me to speak here. I'm truly honored to speak here on this special event. Please, please enjoy Deja Vu. Deja Vu. No, not the movie with Denzel Washington and Paula Patton. What does that mean? Can someone answer me? What does deja vu mean? Ace, can you help me out? Say it one more time. Already seen? Right. A feeling of already experiencing the present situation. Thank you. As I walked onto the campus of South Carolina State University on August the 11th, 2021, from the first day I was here, I grasped an interpersonal connection, feeling and what I would call a tingling in my spine of a place feeling like home. At the time, I didn't know why, if it was the marching band jamming in the morning or night, the Greeks stomping the yard, the class and intellect exuded on a daily basis by professors and students, or last of all, the fashion show, the drip and style. All of these things resonated with me, but that isn't why I felt this deja vu. As I stepped past Leroy Davis Hall one day, making my way to see Miss White in the Honors College to make sure all my business was in order during the first week of classes, I stumbled past this open plot of land that was quiet, somber, but peaceful. I looked at it for a glance and thought to myself, something was here. So I went on with my day and my HBCU experience at the illustrious South Carolina State University. But every once in a while, something would draw me back to this area. A few other times I had a break between classes or leaving the caf, and I told my friends I would catch up with them. And I headed to this center circle. Now for me, it became my place to reflect, think, and funny enough, interesting, remember. I listened to all my neo-soul music there. Erica, Jill, Maxwell, D'Angelo, Masego. And 3 times I sat and thought about the trials and tribulations I had in my life and was able to sit and think. One of the days I began to be real curious, looking around the plot, and saw a name that looked all too familiar. I took a double take to make sure I was seeing correctly, and I saw a name that was spelled exactly the same as mine, with a death date attached, February 8th, 1968. I looked up the name and was startled by what I saw of gruesome images of smoke fogging in the air, thick dark blood spewed on sidewalks, bodies rolling down hills, shoes and clothes in disarray laid all over. And last but not least, striped uniforms with helmets standing over it all, without a care or concern on any of their faces. My first initial thought was, what is this? I researched and looked at the names and the story, and it brought me to one of the most horrific, overlooked, and serious part of our American history, the Orangeburg Massacre. You know, the legendary Dr. Martin Luther King had a quote: "Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that. Hatred paralyzes life. Love releases it. Hatred confuses life. Love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life. Love illuminizes it." Why? Why? How can we live in a world where human beings can be brutally murdered for simply trying to receive the basic human rights that this country affords everybody else? And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. It saddens me to my core that we are here today commemorating the death, forgive me, the brutal murder of three brave young men, Samuel Hammond Jr., Henry Smith, and pronounced differently than mine, Delano Middleton, who were simply peacefully marching for the right to be treated equally and to hang out at a bowling alley, and were sadly denied that right simply because of the color of their skin. So many people were wounded, viciously beaten, bullets piercing their backs, buttocks, and bottoms of their feet, physically and mentally scarred, psychologically damaged for life, and tragically killed. 28 people shot, all for the simple right of being treated like a human being. I can only imagine the courage and bravery it took to march on that gloomy day on February the 8th, 1968, singing protest songs and building bonfires peacefully in unity as one. Fighting for what was right, one man, Mr. Cleveland Sellers, was blamed and left with all responsibility and imprisoned wrongfully for a year, all while being paraded on the steps of city jail. And here we stand 54 years later, and we are still fighting. Can you believe it? They don't even want us to vote. It's 2022, people. This is why we are so thankful for men like Majority Whip Clyburn. We are still fighting, and we will never stop fighting for what is right. I stand before you today on the backs of Frederick Douglass, on the backs of Thurgood Marshall, on the backs of Adam Clayton Powell Jr., W.E.B. Du Bois, Paul Robeson, Charles Hamilton Houston, on the back of Dr. Martin Luther King, Andrew Young, Harriet Tubman, and Fannie Lou Hamer, and especially on the backs of Delano Middleton, Samuel Hammond Jr., and Henry Smith, and all of those wounded. If it wasn't for these great heroes, I wouldn't have the privilege and honor of being where I am. So all I can say is thank you for your courage. Thank you for your perseverance. Thank you for your determination. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for your love of God. And thank you for your bravery. And thank you for making me the person I am and the person I strive to be. We as a people have come from the bowels and the bottoms of slave ships, survived the horrific nightmare called slavery, persevered through the brutality called Jim Crow, the prison industrial complex, where you steal a ham and you go to prison for life. Watch the movie Sounder. And 400 years of inequality. As God is my witness, with the power of love, not hate, and the guidance of Almighty God and faith, there is nothing we as a people can accomplish, overcome, and succeed. Remember I said a deja vu. I felt this same way because I remember when I was 12 years old and when Trayvon Martin was gunned down. I remember when I was 14 and Mike Brown was killed. The 9 members of the Charleston church shooting, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd a year and a half ago. It's a permanent stain because the stories have a resemblance. But we remember, we honor, respect, live for them, and make sure by any means necessary we continue to shine the light on Smith, Hammond, Middleton, and any other beautiful black spirits. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for that compelling expression of art. And I, for one, say that we are tired of deja vu. At this moment, I would like to recognize any elected officials, community leaders, clergy, and presidents of other universities who have joined us. Please stand so that we could recognize you. Thank you so much for being here with us. I would also like to recognize South Carolina State University Interim President Alexander Conyers and our First Lady, Agatha Conyers. We would like to recognize the members of South Carolina State University faculty, staff, and Board of Trustees. We would like to recognize members of the President's Cabinet and university-affiliated boards. Please give them a round of applause. We thank you so much for joining us. Now, before we move on with today's program, I want to take this time to recognize several important individuals who are here with us this morning. Would the families of the 3 students who were fatally wounded please stand as I call the names of the young men. Will the family for Henry Ezekiel Smith please stand? Thank you so much. Will the family of Samuel Ephesians Hammond Jr. please stand? Ann Delano Herman Middleton family, please stand. Now, would the survivors of the Orangeburg Massacre please stand and be acknowledged? Would Mr. John Stroman please stand and be recognized? Mr. Stroman? Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us this year. Please know that South Carolina State University remains committed to commemorating your bravery and that of your loved ones. And we will forever value the gift of freedom that has been given to us through their selfless acts. There are those of us who understand what happened, and then there are those of us who are a part of what happened, and then there are those of us who are missing loved ones because of what happened. Everyone has a little bit of skin in the game, as the people say, but those who have lost their loved ones, we especially send love to you because nothing can replace what you have lost. Next, Mr. Davion Petty will introduce our guest speaker. Mr. Petty has 2 degrees from South Carolina State University. And he currently serves as the Director of Admissions and is responsible for organizing this year's commemoration as the Orangeburg Massacre Committee Chairperson. Mr. Petty, please come forward.
Well, good morning, everyone. Today has, just really, I have a lot of mixed emotions just because this event is one of those ones that's really special here at the university. Not only are we doing it in honor of those who sacrificed and had the courage on the night of February 8th of 1968, but this event annually becomes a family reunion, because each year we see more and more of our family members, more and more of the survivors, alumni, as well as students. So each year I'm excited to help with the planning of this event. Dr. Sellers is someone who actually needs no introduction, because you can actually Google his name and you will get every article almost anywhere out there, right? And because of his coming on campus and educating me over the years about the Orangeburg Massacre, I have developed a deep passion for not only the history about South Carolina State, but about the civil rights movement in general, and the sacrifices that our people have led, and the movements that have come forth as doing so. With that being said, Dr. Sellers, during the civil rights movement, helped lead the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He was the only person convicted and jailed for the events at the Orangeburg Massacre in 1968 civil rights protests, where 3 students, as you know, were killed by state troopers. Sellers' conviction and acquittal of the other 9 defendants was believed to be motivated by racism, and Sellers received a full pardon 25 years later after the incident. However, he elected to keep the charge on his record as a badge of honor. He has been in the forefront of the civil rights movement since the age of 15, starting in 1960. He was reared on the campus of Howard University, where he participated in the March on Washington in 1963. And as he became the Nonviolent Coordinating Committee program director. He's a graduate of Shaw University in 1967. And after release from prison, he completed his master's degree at Harvard University in 1970. He later served as the director of University of South Carolina's African American History and Studies program, and his scholarly pursuits included history of protest traditions, civil rights history, and the oral history of survival experiences of African Americans. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Sellers.
Good day to be celebrating the commemoration of our 3 students who were shot and killed February 8, 1968, and some 40 others who were shot and wounded. The interesting thing about that is that 80% of the students were actually shot in the back. And I think it's interesting to start off with the narrative that came from Governor McNair. So we set the tone for where we are and what is in front of us. The state of South Carolina said that the students were in fact in a gunfight, a shootout with the Highway Patrol, and they had no alternative but to return the fire. They said that the students were charging toward them so that they would go downtown and burn the city of Orangeburg down like Watts. And so Burn Baby Burn become again a kind of catalyst that we hear when we talk about events in which there is a fire. It's always, or it's Black Lives Matter or whatever it may be, it's always that, it's the rioting students, it's the agitator, it's the agitation. So I think it's important for us to recognize that we have a responsibility as a community to continue to tell the story of the Orangeburg Massacre. It has been covered up, and it is intentionally covered up, and nobody has corrected the truth, and the state of South Carolina has taken absolutely no action to try to reconcile this issue. I also want to start out with a quote, and it's from Stephen Gurlett. I expect to pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. And I'm saying that because for many of us who were involved in during that time, I talked to some of the older students, and they told me that some of them that were in the student body in 1968 had a difficult time coming down 26, coming back to the school, because the memories were so distorted of what they remember about being in Orangeburg and at South Carolina State. It is that the state of South Carolina did the bait and switch. They took the position that they were correct in harnessing on the campus the students' activities, the students the victims, made the students the perpetrators of the shooting and the incident that took the lives of 3 and impacted tremendously 40 other students who were in fact wounded. So I take this time to step out today. It was not an easy walk to get here. And that's part of the reason why I don't do this anymore. Okay, I'm here today in the memory of the 3 students killed, Samuel Hammonds, Delano Middleton, and Henry Smith, along with the close to 40 students injured here 54 years ago in the hands of the South Carolina Highway Patrol. 54 years ago, under the cover of darkness, their lives were snatched away. 54 years ago, under the jurisdiction of police and rule of segregation, shot in the buttocks, in the ball of their feet, in their backs, and in their heads. 54 years ago, and justice, and just like the refuge they were seeking, it's still elusive. I'll get my glasses straightened out in just a minute and do a lot better. Please. I stood in fronts of crowds like this for years with a message about what happened the night of February 8th on the campus of South Carolina State College, now University, and what didn't happen in the weeks, months, and years after. No thorough investigation, no blue ribbon commission, no truth, no reconciliation, no restitution, nothing, not a thing. For the next few minutes, I want to remind us to put it on the record once more that we have to be vigilant, we have to persevere, and we have to keep the story as much alive on the front pages and in the front of people's minds as we can, as many people as we can. We all have that responsibility, all of us. All of us have stories to tell. We need to have, all of us need to represent that, and because if we don't, then we have 54 years of inaction that will show what can happen in the next 54 years. So let's not repeat it. You know, we won't get a chance to look at this again. We won't get a chance to do this all over again for another 54 years. So let's get it right now. Those who have studied the South have spoken on how trapped in the inglorious past and living in the random now has caused places like South Carolina to suffer. While one South Carolinian distinguished resident essayist, James Dabbs, author of books like Southern Heritage, 1958, and Who Speaks for the South, 1964, spoke about the coalition of blacks and whites that could, quote, evolve a diverse but united society better than any the South has ever known, unquote. In Orangeburg in 1968, the students were not invited to that evolution. Sitting outside of segregated bowling alleys and more, they questioned not just why, not just when, but how the world could change if they didn't peacefully push for it to change. We had to do it, and we had to recognize that we had to do it because there was nobody else that was going to do it for us. Okay? And that's just not a generational thing, but that's a thing in a community that wants to live. Peaceful word. No guns, no gumption to confront the status quo, and a campus bonfire to keep warm, to lift spirits, to throw out light in the darkness, made darker by the shadows of racism and white supremacy. This is not what the 9 officers from the State Highway Patrol chose to see. Instead of useful optimism of civic engagement, they saw a threat. Instead of standing down, the officers armed themselves with double-aught buckshots, extra lethal ammunition, strong enough to kill a deer, an elephant, an oxen. It is 3 different grades of firepower between that they had in their guns and what you can find in bird shots. The double-aught buckshot, if you were close, it would tear a big hole in you. if you were far away, it had about 8 pellets in it that were the size of a .38 that would just spread out and hit a lot of different people. The students were outnumbered, outgunned, and we still don't know what the signal was that led to the barrage of gunfire. What we do know is that the piece of wood thrown at an officer, the only documented assault on an officer, happened a full 10 minutes before an officer fired in the air the first shot that rang out. A search of the campus found no weapons. The students did not have any weapons at all and did not exchange gunfire. The National Guard, who was also on the scene, never even loaded their guns. And in response to the carnage, to the portrayal of youth shot in the back by the very state patrol who was supposed to protect them, there were lies and then there were gag orders. The governor at the time claimed that the students were influenced. For the governor's office, when the shooting took place, said that I was the big N-word on the scene. That was his response to the tragedy. Later, a SLED officer would testify that he saw me climb on the hood of a fire truck, click a bic, and say, "Burn, baby, burn." That was never a slogan for black folk. That started out with Watts and how they projected what that was. So that was something that was created by the media to talk about rebellions and riots, whatever disposition that was going on anywhere else. It was always burn, baby, burn. And anytime there was a fire during a demonstration, we would use that rhetoric, and that was the rhetoric that whites detest. So they were in favor of doing whatever was necessary to get rid of it. I was eventually charged with riot. I never got on top of a fire truck, and I had a kangaroo court. And when I got to court, I was first started out with 5 different charges. I was charged with broken into the house next to the administration building over there. Burglary. I was supposed to have taken the wood off the house and took it over, drug it over, and started the bonfire. And then arson, and then assault with intent to kill a police officer. And the last one was riot. Those were the charges that I was facing. And when I was told that by the judge or the magistrate, I went to Fantasia. And some people that know what Fantasia was, you know, just a mix of all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I took the position that I needed to call my attorney and turn that over to him. And that's what I, in fact, did. But I'm telling you about this because I want you to understand that it wasn't just getting arrested and going to jail and coming back home and all that kind of stuff. And so what I'll do is I'll skip down a little bit and tell you about some of the other things that happened. That night, I was fingerprinted and pictures taken over in the Pink Castle. And then I was taken to ICC. And by 1:30, I was in jail in ICC down in Columbia. The next morning when I got up, I was asking some of the inmates who were walking down the outside where I was, and they told me that I was on the cell block that housed death row inmates. And I was just thinking about the insult to injury. that was going on. And I knew I had to stay focused because I couldn't tell what was going on and where I might be. And then later on, when I ended up going to trial, the first row in the courthouse was Highway Patrol, sitting shoulder to shoulder. And it was a kangaroo court for all practical purposes. And they had me tried for 3 charges: conspiracy to riot, incitement to riot, and riot. The judge directed the verdict on the conspiracy and the incitement because in South Carolina it takes 2 or more people to have a riot. And the judge asked where was the evidence, and at that point a SLED officer, the attention of the judge, and he said, well, I saw him commit a crime. Even though the sheriff and the chief of police said that they saw me doing absolutely nothing on the 6th, they decided to change the date of the indictment from the 8th, and then I was tried. I was being tried on an incident that happened on the night of the 6th. Now, what that incident was that the SLED officer said he had taken notes. So they adjourned court, came back, and I was waiting on him to present, and he told the judge he couldn't find the notes, but he remembered that I got on top of the fire truck, flicked the bic, and said, "Burn, baby, burn." And that was sufficient evidence to give me 1 year hard labor. Now, I'm saying this because when we talk about people making a commitment, understand that we are talking about a kind of life and death struggle out here that we're going to have to go through, and that there are going to be some sacrifices you have to make. So when you find that courage, you should step onto the pages of history, but recognize that it ain't going to be a smooth ride. From that point on, the FBI managed the Orangeburg Massacre charges against me. When I went to Atlanta, right after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, who counseled me against to be a conscientious objector and refused to get inducted into the service, when I got to court, they were supposed to sentence me, and they were supposed to set a bond. But what happened was that the FBI came in and said that I was charged with moral turpitude in South Carolina. So they denied the bond. So I had to go to 14 different institutions. I went to Atlanta City, Fulton County, Newnan, Georgia, Rome, Georgia, Florida, Atlanta Federal, Nashville, Lexington, and then ended up in Terre Haute, Indiana in a 4-month period. And that was the part of the process of disorienting and kind of getting you all caught. So I'm saying that because that was a part of what happened. And so for the next 10 years, either the U.S. Marshal's Office or the FBI, as a part of their COINTELPRO program, monitored all of my activities and actions for a period of 10 years. On one occasion, I got on an airplane to go to Canada to do a radio show. And when I got in Canada, they pulled me aside and said that the United States had indicated that I had moral turpitude on my record and that they should not allow me to come in. They put me on the next plane back to the USA, and for almost 15 years, I could not use or have a passport. Now, this is some of what I wanted to just share with you because I think it's important for you to understand. Sometimes people see you and they get the idea that there's something that's magical or something that's different about you. I'm the young boy that grew up in Denmark, South Carolina, just like most of you all around here grew up in some small town area. And it's not about playing any games or getting any recognition. It never has been about that. Even in civil rights, I learned from Ella Baker and Bob Moses about self. That simply means that you don't want to be recognized. You want your work to be recognized. You want your challenge of the National Democratic Party recognized. You want the right to vote to be recognized. So I have that track record of being in Selma and those other places, the Mississippi Meredith March, the Selma March, the March on Washington, you name it during that period. Even ran the South Carolina campaign for Jesse Jackson for president in 1984. So we have been involved and we have been engaged, but it's just the work that we are concerned about, not concerned about recognitions and all that kind of stuff. But then there was the last one we'll talk about, and then we'll go ahead and close this out because I don't want to keep you here long, because you know how we talk about how the preacher did over Sunday dinner. But the last thing that the state did was that I had a daughter that was born while I was in prison. So we requested that that we go to Greensboro and be with the family when she was born. And they delayed and delayed and delayed, and then finally they said, no, you can't go. And I'm very proud to be able to ask my daughter, Nosiswe Abadami Sellers, who is here today, to stand up so you can see the baby girl. I'm going to make this the last time that I really have to go through a lot of anxiety and all to come to a program like this. So I have to come and I have to sit way in the back because it's not good for me. I was talking to somebody else that you know, and that was Carl, and whether or not he was going to be here today. And he said he couldn't make it, too much anxiety. So I just want you to know that we have everybody in our hearts. All the survivors. And we know the pain and suffering that you go through. Most people don't know about the PTSD that we all go through. But we have to fight through that. And it's just not those people who were out there that night. There were people who were in the student body. New people who were killed. New people who were in. New people that were by what happened. And so I'm going to go sit down and tell you that take that under consideration, and please understand that you have a chapter that you need to write on the Orangeburg Massacre and tell your story to the rest of the world. Thank you very much.
My God, my God. I am so thankful to be here in this moment, knowing that what we are celebrating is his work, just like he said, but who could go through what he has gone through and still be able to come back on the campus to talk to us? Another round of applause. We were challenged. Did you hear the challenge? We must tell our stories. We must tell our stories. Do you know about the African proverb that says the hunter will always be glorified until what? The lion learns how to write. We must tell our stories, and we'll do it not so that we'll get the recognition, but so the work can be recognized. Thank you so much for those awesome words. And I will just say this, if you understand PTSD, some of us have picked it up during the pandemic when we saw the knee on the neck. It changed our lives. Not because we didn't understand this kind of treatment, not because we've never seen it, but because everybody else in the world got a chance to peek behind the door and understand what it was to be black in America. And let me tell you, it's just like people opening your door and realizing you've been abused by your spouse for years, but you put makeup on the bruises and you went along trying to make a great life, knowing that there was always danger around the corner. And I thank God that he's going to bring us to the place where we can set down PTSD and we can be some what? Beautiful African-American people enjoying our culture and enjoying each other without the trauma of being disenfranchised. Thank you again for your inspiring words, Mr. Sellers. And we are going to move on to something that's also wonderful in today's ceremony. We will now have the presentation of the Smith Hammond Middleton Social Justice Awards by our interim president, Alexander Conyers. President Conyers.
Good afternoon again, and thanks for being here today as we pause to reflect the pain and suffering from 54 years ago. Dr. Sellers, thanks for sharing with us today. We got the message. You said that this will be your last time speaking at a ceremony like this. We want to thank you for running your part of the race. You have passed your baton. We've accepted your baton, and we will continue to run this race and make up for lost ground. To the families of Smith, Hammond, and Middleton, thank you for being here. We know that this doesn't get any easier. To our survivors, please stand again. Thank you for never giving up. Thank you for being here today like you have been for the last 54 years. You are the true epitome of bulldog tenacity. Thanks for allowing me to stand on your shoulders. I'd like to recognize again our Board of Trustees led by Chairman Rodney Jenkins and any other elected guests who are with us today. I know we have the Mayor of Orangeburg, Mayor Butler, as well as the Mayor of Charleston, South Carolina, Mayor Tecklenburg. Thank you for being here. Before I present our Social Justice Awards, I'd like to personally reflect. There's a principle called Miles' Law. In short, it states, Where you stand depends on where you sit. As a student here, I often tried to place myself in their shoes on that night and wondered, what would I have done? And then later, as a parent of a student here at South Carolina State, I wondered about local law enforcement. Are he and his friends safe from those who should protect them? Are they safe at a traffic stop? Are they safe jogging in a neighborhood? Are they safe walking with a bag of Skittles? Now, from where I sit today, I reflect on the darkest days of our 125-year history and try to imagine the leadership of then interim President Nance as he carried the tremendous weight of leadership for this great university, this community, this state, and yes, even this nation. In 1968, he had to endure losing men and having those under his charge shot here in these United States of America on this campus, not in Vietnam, where war was raging in 1968. I reflected on my time in combat in Afghanistan, vowing to bring my men home all alive. But Nance, interim President Nance, was not in Afghanistan. He was not in Iraq. He was not in Vietnam. He was in Orangeburg. And we must not ever forget that. In preparing for today, I reached out to a friend and a mentor of mine who was here in 1968. He was the junior class president on that night of the shootings, just like our junior class president today, Mr. Daniel Bowman. And he was later elected as the SGA president for the next year, just like our very own Miss Giovanni Ayers. And he actually dedicated the first SHM Memorial in 1969. He wanted to be here today, but he couldn't. So he shared his thoughts with me. And I quote, "Despite the passage of time, February 8th, 1968 is as fresh in my memory today as it was 54 years ago. Although the racial tensions that contributed to the tragic outcome of that day have improved, my heart still yearns for a day when we can all get along, regardless of race. I am taking the liberty to speak for so many others who feel as I do, saying that we continue to lift the families of Henry Smith, Samuel Hammond, and Delano Middleton in fervent prayer. We are eternally grateful that our then South Carolina State College interim president, the late Dr. Maceo Nance, provided leadership that contributed to even fewer deaths and injuries on that fateful day. The Honorable Dr. Clifford L. Stanley, class of '69, Major General, United States Marine Corps, retired. Now, as we plan for our awards, the word social justice embodies a long history of dynamic, vibrant movements that make up the long struggle for human rights and equality in this nation. Today, activists for this cause continue to emerge with effective campaigns that target deep-seated issues in society. Their strides towards progressive change are built on demands for another, a better world, and based on racial justice, universal human rights, fairness, and genuine grassroots democracy and beyond. As you have witnessed today's event, you see the significance of this annual ceremony. We honor the sacrifices and victories of those who fought for racial equality. Here at South Carolina State University, we will continue to work on game-changing initiatives with strategic collaborations that will truly move the social justice needle. South Carolina State University has been at the forefront of the civil rights movement for many years. It is at our core, and we must remain true to our core. At South Carolina State, we aim to educate the people of our university, community, and across the state and nation how to advocate and advance issues for social justices. We look forward to laying the foundation this year for establishing and standing up our Eradicating Racism and Constructing Equity Center of Excellence and Justice. The E-Race Center will be designed to address all aspects of social injustice and racism through research, teaching, training, and service. We have announced this last year, but this year we will stand that center up. We have mourned the tragic loss of these shining stars in our history, and we have yearned for justice and accountability we felt would never come. Now, through researching, teaching and training, and service, a historic sequel will be written. It is our hope that one day we will reach a spirit of understanding, forgiveness, new awareness, and sensitivity, and move to an era where there is true liberty and justice for all. Now let us direct you to a very special part of this ceremony when we shine a spotlight on champions of social justice. The 54th ceremony marks the 8th year in which we present the Smith-Hammond-Middleton Social Justice Awards. The award is given to individuals or organizations that have demonstrated a commitment to using their influence to highlight or eliminate injustices for those deprived of their civil rights. Welcome, class of 1971. Those words greeted incoming freshmen who had arrived on the campus of South Carolina State College in the fall of 1967. Bright, enthusiastic, nervous, optimistic, curious, energetic freshmen ready to pursue their dreams and place in a changing world. They arrived on campus from as far away as Trinidad, the Virgin Islands, and as near as Orangeburg, South Carolina. With them came various cultures and experiences, including discrimination in a racial segregated society during the height of the civil rights movement. So it was only natural that cold evening, February 8th, that many of those curious and ambitious minds seized the opportunity to engage in peaceful protests. Among them were Samuel Hammond and at least 8 other freshmen who fell as wounded victims in what we remember today as the Orangeburg Massacre. From the windows of Lowman, Bradham, and Manning Hall, others watched in mental shock and anguish as their fellow students were carried to this same Brooks Infirmary. With horrible images embedded in their memories and friendships sealed by the fate of February 8, 1968, the class of 1971 forged ahead to fulfill their dreams of building a racially just society. Still enthusiastic and optimistic, the class of 1971 recently donated generously to their beloved South Carolina State University. With wounded hearts, but not broken spirits, these loyal sons and daughters felt compelled to rally to the call of South Carolina State and honor the memories of their classmate, Samuel Hammond, along with Henry Smith and Delano Middleton. With bulldog pride and tenacity, the class of 1971 hopes to inspire others to continue to fight for social justice and thereby leave a legacy for future generations to remember the sacrifices made in pursuit and racial equality for all. Mr. Bobby Eady, a survivor of the Orangeburg Massacre and a member of the class of 1971, will accept the award on their behalf. Sir, thank you for your leadership.
I would imagine that every class that has gone through this university in some way thinks of themselves as being special. But I'm here to tell you this today, that the class of 1971 was a special group of people. If anybody doesn't believe that, Mr. Conyers, South Carolina State University, on behalf of the class of 1971, I say thank you.
Our next recipient probably really needs no introduction, but I would read just a bit about her. Gloria D. Powles, a native of New York City, arrived on the campus of South Carolina State as a student in 1966. Since her arrival, she has served in many roles that have helped her beloved alma mater and its graduates to thrive. She earned her Bachelor's of Science degree in elementary education with a concentration in special education. Her professional role began in 1972 when she returned to South Carolina State to work in a federally funded program formerly called Special Services Programs. Over the years, she has contributed to the retention and academic success of countless students and student athletes. In 1991, she assumed the position as the Director of Title III and Assistant Professor of Counseling in the Department of Human Services. For over 28 years as the Title III Director, she has played a key role in enhancing the university's programs and activities to fulfill the mission and goals of South Carolina State University. She played a pivotal role in securing the funding for the creation and building of the Smith Hammond Middleton Monument that we will unveil shortly. She's also one of our greatest advocates. She's always stressed to anyone who listens to support the university in any way you can, including being an annual donor. She has a proven track record as an unmatched resource and possesses a wealth of knowledge which she is always willing to share. She's a member of Williams Chapel African American Episcopal Church, Orangeburg, where she serves on committees for annual conferences, church anniversaries, and is treasurer for Small Steps, Big Strides Daycare Center. She is a Golden Life member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and also served as a volunteer mentor at Whitaker Elementary School. She is the proud and devoted mother of one son, Kendall, and grandmother of grandson, Caden. Her love, care, and guidance also includes her younger sister, Crystal, grandnieces, and nephews. Please join me in thanking Ms. Gloria Powles for her efforts for preserving the legacy of Henry Smith, Samuel Hammond, and Delano Middleton.
Thank you, everyone. I was told that I need to say something about what has happened with the Orangeburg Monument. When Dr. Fulani showed me the bus, I asked him, "What are you going to do with these?" He said, "Nothing." I said, "You have to do something with them. You spent all this time." So what I told him to find out how much it would cost for us to bronze them. And he waited and waited and waited, so several years went by. So I went back to him again. I said, "This is my last time asking you." And people told him, "When Ms. Powers asks you to do something, you better do it, boy." So anyway, I sent him to North Carolina with the bus. He had them bronzed, brought them back, and we unveiled them 2 years ago. And Finally, we had this monument built, and we have placed them in the monument, and they are beautiful. And we will unveil that today. I want to thank my staff, Title III, the class of 71 for giving us additional funds. And if there are any other classes that wish to give us some more money, there are a lot more things that we need to do to finalize this beautiful monument. And I thank the administration for giving me this award today. And I told Conyers when he first came here, there were two things I wanted to do before I leave. And that was to do that monument, and the other one, I can't say right now what it was, but we will, we will talk about that soon. I thank you. This is my alma mater. I love it, and I've been here long enough to make something of value come. And I thought this was the best that I could do. Thank you.
Congratulations, class of 1971, and thank you, Mr. Eady and Ms. Piles. Thank you for your fine contribution to this great institution. We are eternally thankful for your lifetime devotion of seeking social justice for all people. Give them another round of applause. I do have a couple of announcements that I would like to share with you. The Cecil Williams Civil Rights Museum is the first civil rights museum in the state of South Carolina. Come on, let's applaud for that. His museum is a rich resource for understanding civil rights in this community, state, and nation. I would just like to say this on behalf of Orangeburg. I've been here for 22 years, so I consider myself to be from Orangeburg. Don't worry about where I came from. I'm here now. And I would like to say, I tell people all the time, oh, don't sleep on Orangeburg. Don't sleep on the people and the greatness in Orangeburg, because there are some great things happening in Orangeburg, okay? So I just wanted to let you know that you were in a great place. Now, Mr. Williams has been a vital person who has preserved the legacy of the Orangeburg Massacre, and we would like to thank him. Mr. Williams, I know you're probably here. Are you here, Mr. Williams? We'll give him a round of applause anyway. Additionally, the Orangeburg County Library and Center for Creative Partnerships are proud to present 50 copies of John Lewis's wonderful memoir, Walking in the Wind. They're going to present it to 50 South Carolina State University students. For those that have not ever seen the All-Star Bowling Alley, the Center for Creative Partnerships will open the All-Star Bowling Alley from 1 to 3 o'clock p.m. today following this ceremony. So if you haven't been in a while, if you can take it and understand it, please go. For those who've never been, please go so that you can understand more about this story. This is an opportunity for the community to view the site, which is substantially unchanged since 1968, before the preservation work gets underway. Also, we would like to give special thanks to Dr. William and Darlene Hine, Miss Gloria Piles, Mr. Roland Haynes, Mr. Samuel Watson, Mrs. Sonia Bennett Bellamy, and the entire institutional advancement team for making this event a success. Give them a round of applause. Additionally, we would like to give special thanks to the Office of Facilities Management, Ken Davis, Paul Platt, Katie Arendt, and Title III staff, Demetrius Chapman, Margie Myers, and Mitchell Chapman. Give them a round of applause. And last, but certainly not least, we want to thank me. It has been a pleasure today to serve as your mistress. I skip something. Mistress of ceremonies. Go ahead, sir.
Please join me in thanking Ms. Robinson, please. We recognized earlier our city administrator who brought us greetings, but I did want to take this time to recognize also our county administrator, Mr. Harold Young, who does so much for us on this university campus. Mr. Young, where are you? I know he's here somewhere, but thank you, Mr. Young, for being here.
Thank you, President. Okay, where am I in the script, honey? All right, it's a pleasure to serve as your mistress of ceremonies this afternoon. For those who wish to join us, we will lead the procession to the Legacy Memorial Plaza for the laying of the 3 wreaths and the lighting of the memorial flame. We do ask that members of the audience remain seated or remain standing to allow the program participants and the family members to be escorted first to the plaza, and they'll be escorted by the nation's finest Bulldog Battalion. So please come forward, the battalion, so that we can, excuse me. You know where I'm from then, right? Okay. Please remain seated where you are while the cadets do this, lead the program participants as they come forward. Okay, great. And thank you so much for being with us today. Remember your challenge. And remember, in the words of Whitehead and McFadden, baby, ain't no stopping us now. Thank you.